So it's not West against East. It's the Western allies against the rest of the world now. And that's why China is so powerful, because they can add all these countries from the rest of the world to their bloc. And China, never forget, China is using their currency now to do trade with all these countries. So they already won the game, you could say, because the US is losing after the Second World War. The US was very successful in making all these countries trade in US dollars. But now there's so many countries in the East who don't use the dollar that much anymore. And already China is doing most of its bilateral trade in other currencies than the dollar, and preferably in their own currency, because they can print it. And so China understands that if you can print your own currency and other countries take it as payment for bilateral trade, you're in a very, very powerful position.
Yeah, you touched on something that is very important to me, and that is the topic of de-dollarization, the BRICS. China just came out a couple weeks ago with their cross-border renminbi payment system, which is mBridge. They have connected parts of the Asianic nations, I think 11 of them. Those are the countries in Southeast Asia, and 5 of the Middle Eastern countries. But to your point about settling immediately, the SWIFT system takes 3 to 5 days going through intermediary banks. This new bridge technology settles in 7 seconds with a 98% reduction in fees using their local currencies and then settling imbalances in gold. This is a trend that definitely we see happening. And then I want to focus on the gold part for a moment, in that part of this piece to this puzzle is that the Shanghai Exchange, you had mentioned earlier, which is now challenging COMEX, is opening up, trying to globalize their footprint, and they're opening up exchanges starting in Hong Kong and Saudi Arabia, and ultimately through South America, Asia, and Africa, the Belt Road, if you will, where all of these countries, which represent the majority of human population, the Belt Road alone is 70%, and you add in the Eurasian Economic Union, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and the BRICS with the Belt Road, you're 90% of population that will have human population. That is, that will have the ability to trade over this new bridge technology using their own currencies and settling in gold. Well, the gold part is the important part. And they've talked about opening these extensions of the Shanghai Exchange in these countries so that the balances can be settled in gold without it being held in one jurisdiction. So with all of that in mind, do you see gold, its run, as a slow managed repricing by the powers that be? Or do you think this, when the realization of what's coming,
well,
the infrastructure that's being set up, will it be a full-blown panic bid that shocks the world?
Well, when it's true, what you just described, and I think it's true, you already described the build of a new monetary or trade system. And so this is not a situation like Bretton Woods, where you had this one big conference and the US put its dollar plan on the table and we could, vote if we would accept it, yes or no. I think the Chinese are playing it very smart. I studied China quite a bit. 2 of my books have been translated into Mandarin, and I traveled quite a bit there. So I think it's a fascinating country with a fascinating history. The system has been more or less the same for over 5,000 years. Gold has been real money for over 5,000 years, so they do understand gold. They had hyperinflation in the late 1940s, as you might remember. Actually, the Communist Party was able to, have a successful revolution because of the hyperinflation of the 1940s. So they understand this very well. And they are building this new trading system, and they know they need gold, maybe to settle bilateral trade, maybe to start a full-backed currency one day. I don't think that's their main goal, but they know they can do that when needed. And I'm a bit afraid that the West will keep sticking to its dollar, system. while being in decline and having more and more debts and getting more and more stable, while the East is building their own, well, trading system, getting more powerful by the day and by the year, and starting to really compete with the Western dollar system. So you have a bifurcation of the international monetary system, the Western system, as we all know it, and then the new BRICS system, which is laughed at by the mainstream media in the West, and we then don't take it serious until the day we need to take it serious, because they will say, you have to pay, you can buy our commodities, but you have to pay with gold, Bitcoin, or whatever. And actually, Putin said that after the start of the Ukraine war. Most people forgot it, but we here in Europe were relying on the Russian gas, and we don't have Russian gas anymore. That's why we pay triple the price for energy than you guys in the US. But why don't we have a Russian cheap energy anymore? Because we refuse to accept Putin's offer to pay with gold or Bitcoin, but he would accept euros or dollars. So in a way, this divide is already there, but most people don't see it. And the Western mainstream media is so arrogant, and they just laugh about it. But I think soon we might start crying. Remember Trump once telling the Germans that they could lose the Russian cheap energy and they would be, well, their economy would be really harmed because of the high energy pricing. And that was the German delegation at the United Nations. They were laughing when Trump was saying that in their face. And now Germany is having some real serious problems here in Europe.
Yeah, one of the things you mentioned there that I think most of the Western media has ignored and has missed completely and totally, they laugh at the BRICS. It's not big enough. It's not a big enough system. The bridge technology they came out and said is not compatible with euros, pounds, and dollars. So you can see who they're signaling out: euros, pounds, and dollars. But this is the part that the Western media has missed, and that is that the Russian Minister of Finance, Sergei Lavrov, came out about a month ago, and this is what I think is the biggest piece that is not being discussed, is that he said the bridge technology, which is not compatible with dollars, pounds, and euros, will be open to non-BRICS members. And that should be screamed at, because now you bring in the SCO, the Eurasian Economic Union, and the Belt Road Initiative, and now you have 90% of human population, 3 of the 4 largest nuclear arsenals on the planet, the majority of commodity production, commodity refining, manufacturing, including Vietnam, who was just formally admitted into the BRICS along with Indonesia. So you have all of these things that are happening that the Western media, to your point, is ignoring. It should be very, very interesting to see.
Don't forget Enbridge, the BIS, the Bank of International Settlements, were partnering in the Enbridge project, and actually they got out of the project because they understood this is being weaponized by the BRICS alliance now against the West. So they said, well, we can't continue. And after the weaponization of the dollar by the US, I think we have the weaponization of gold and commodities now by the BRICS alliance, and they will play smart. These are smart guys.